welcome back. A special edition of On Air with Chris Shanafelt. Thanks to everybody tuning in, whether it be Twitter, Periscope, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. We're streaming everywhere. Then as soon as the podcast is up, you could find the podcast also on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor. Anywhere you could find your podcast is where you could check this one out. Again, I'm your host, Chris Shanafelt. And we have a good one for you guys today, as we are now joined by Miami Dolphins legendary offensive tackle. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, and protected the blind side of the great Dan Marino back in the 90s. And now he's one of the hosts of the Dolphins Brawl podcast, a part of the Brawl Network. It's a pleasure to welcome onto the show. Welcome back onto the show, I should say, Richmond Webb, as I actually had Richmond back on my podcast back in high school about 8-9 years ago. So long time no talk, Richmond. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat as we take a look at the very impressive Miami Dolphins as they currently stand 6-3, look to go 7-3 after this weekend against the Denver Broncos. Richmond, how's everything going this evening?
I'm doing good, Chris. How you doing? Glad to be back on your show. I know it's been a few years, but always good to kind of reconnect and all that. So appreciate the intro and all that, but I'm doing good.
Absolutely, Richmond. Really appreciate it. Now, I'd be remiss if I'm talking Miami Dolphins on the show today, Richmond, and I don't bring up the passing of Jake Scott, who passed away yesterday at the age of 75. He was the MVP of Super Bowl VII, which, of course, was the legendary undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins team. You're much younger, Richmond, but did you have any interactions with Scott from the outside looking in? It seems like a lot of people respected him for not only what he did on the field, but the way he carried himself off the field as well.
Oh, no question. I didn't know him personally, but I've met a lot of guys that were teammates of Jake, and that was just a special team, a bunch of special guys, and being able to hear the stories from when they played versus when I played, and just have tremendous respect because they set an example of winning to start the tradition off for the Miami Dolphins. And anytime you get to interact with those guys, they paved the ways for a guy like me. So I always look up to my elders and stuff like that. So it was always a great time interacting with the guys that played in the 70s and was on that undefeated team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the outpouring of love and support all over social media the past 24 hours. Transitioning into the current Miami Dolphins team, Richmond, they're currently 6-3. They're very much so alive in the AFC East division, as they're only one game behind the 7-2 Buffalo Bills for first place. They're currently on a 5-game winning streak. They're 3-0 since making the quarterback change to Tua Tagovailoa. This team has caught a lot of people off guard this season, including myself. I did think that they were going to be improved. I didn't think that they would be this improved. I don't, especially people on the national level. I think this came from left field. For you, Richmond, somebody who keeps an eye on this team week in and week out, year in and year out, has this team surprised you with just how much they've improved in year two of the Brian Flores era?
Oh, most definitely. I don't think anybody expected these type of results that quickly, especially from, last year. Had an opportunity to meet Coach Flores last year at the Dallas game, and was very highly impressed with him. So I knew what he was doing, him and Chris Greer, the general manager, but for it to turn around this quickly, I think it caught a lot of people off guard, except probably for the current players that's playing now and Coach Flores, because they've done an excellent job of getting guys together to buy into the vision. And it's just a bunch of unselfish guys and guys that's putting the team first beside their own individual stats or accomplishments or whatever. And I think that's why they're having the type of success they're having.
And it's not every time a assistant coach from the Bill Belichick coaching tree, it's not every time one of those coaches gets hired as a head coach elsewhere that they have success. More times than not, they don't have a lot of success. But that's clearly the opposite of what's going on now with Brian Flores and what he's got going on with the Miami Dolphins. This is a team that started their 5-game winning streak, Richmond, with a different quarterback under center, that being veteran quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. The organization dropped a bombshell on the NFL world after the shutout victory against the Jets a few weeks back, heading into their bye week, that they were going to hand the keys over to rookie Tua Tagovailoa against the Rams following their bye week. It now looks like that was the right decision, as Tua has since gone 3-0. But in the moment, at 3-3, winning 2 in a row, many people did not agree with making that change at quarterback. How do you think the coaching staff handled the situation, and why do you think they made that decision when they did?
Well, that one, like you said, I agree. It didn't make sense to a lot of people at that time, and it caught people off guard because Fitzpatrick was playing well. I think everybody knows that Tua was going to be the franchise guy, the future for the Miami Dolphins. But a lot of times, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But the way I came up with it is, you're not privy or you're not able to see the practices, the development, the type of throws, his actual skill set and practice, but the coaches are. So I think every week he was being evaluated. And at that point in time, I guess with it, they're being 3-3 and they had 2 weeks to prepare for his first game. And they said, hey, let's pull the trigger now. I think he's ready. And I think they have been watching that. But Fitzpatrick has been a tremendous asset to the Miami Dolphins, even last year when he went through the quarterback battle with Josh Rosen, and just seemed like the guys played for him. Another unselfish guy, you even see him, he'll throw the ball or pitch it and then try to run down and make a block on a linebacker or safety or whatever. And you just don't see that from quarterback play, and you don't see it when a guy's, over 35 years old. So I think I just really like the way he's handled the transition. I think he knew it was coming, but I think it caught him off guard, and I think he was a little disappointed when it first happened. But if he wants to be a coach or something in this league, he's got the right attitude, and I think he would definitely be an asset. I know he's an asset to the Dolphins, but to any organization, he's a first-class guy.
Yeah, you said obviously you've seen this coming. They draft a quarterback in the top 5 of the NFL draft. You know that eventually it's going to be that guy's team. It's going to be that guy's turn. But after winning 2 in a row, having the team at 500 heading into the bye week, once the news broke, Fitzpatrick seemed just as surprised, just as shocked, and like everybody in the national side of things. And, you could just tell by hearing his comments, he was a little disappointed, but obviously this is a guy that was able to as uneasy as it sounds, he was able to get over it, move on, and obviously support his teammates and do what's best for the Miami Dolphins. And, again, I don't think there's a backup quarterback more valuable than Ryan Fitzpatrick currently in the NFL. Now, Richmond, for the majority of your career, you blocked the blind side of Dan Marino. Looking at this Miami Dolphins offensive line, how have they performed in your eyes, and what adjustments, if any, do they have to make when it comes to protecting a pocket passer such as Fitz to more of a mobile quarterback that could do a little bit of damage with his feet like Tua?
Well, the thing I've really been impressed with this offensive line, at times 3 rookies playing. You got Jackson at the left tackle position, and his kid's 20 years old. But the thing with offensive line or whatever is you got to be able to communicate and kind of get on one accord or whatever. And for the most part, they've been able to do it. I remember Jackson got hurt early on, and he was on IR for a few weeks. So it was good to see him get back into the lineup. But I thought they've done extremely well, and it really didn't seem it really affected them as much as who's quarterback, because both of the quarterbacks, they're not guys that just sit back there and massage the football. They go through their reads, they go through their progressions, and then, they find the receiver and hit them. So anytime you find a quarterback, or you have a quarterback that can make decisions, be decisive, make the right decision, and go down and hit those targets, it makes your job a lot easier. The thing, like you said, with Tua, he's more of a dual threat quarterback. So not that he runs all the time, but it keeps defenses a little bit honest that they got to maintain containment and stuff on a guy like that, because he's shown he will run and get the first down and slide and this and that. So just playing good football, not only offense but defense, special teams. It seemed like everybody is contributing. It's not like just a heavy load on one side of the football or whatever. So I think that's what's been most impressive to me.
Looking at the wide receiver depth of this team, Richmond, you got Devontae Parker, who is a proven wide receiver. He has superstar potential. I think that's still there when having the right quarterback there throwing him the football. But just how big of a loss is the injury to Preston Williams to this football team?
Oh, I think it was huge, but they have a saying down there that says "next man up." So the guy that's the next man up has definitely stepped up and met the challenge. I mean, hopefully Preston Williams is just lost for a few weeks. I know they put him on IR. I don't know the severity of the injury. I know it's a foot injury, but hopefully we can get him back before the end of the season. But Parker is the leader of that group, and then you got Gesicki at tight end. So we still got some playmakers out there. But anytime you lose a valuable guy like that, you want to try to get him back as quick as possible. So hopefully his injury isn't severe to where it affects him where he has missed the rest of the season. But that definitely was a blow. But the younger guys, they continue to step up, fill the void, and that's another thing that's just been impressive.
Yeah, and Preston Williams on IR. Of course, this year there's a new rule to the injured reserve as you have to at least miss 3 games, but then they're able to bring you back. And you mentioned Mike Gesicki, one of the tight ends on the team. Another one, former Bear, Adam Shaheen, already having a career year, his first year with the team. They traded him for, I believe it was a 7th-round draft pick. He's got a couple of touchdowns on the season already. Durham Smythe, the former Notre Dame tight end, he had a touchdown last week. So you do have guys stepping up. Like you said, they have that next man up mentality. Here's a situation that I'm still scratching my head at, Richmond. And again, we're chatting with Richmond Webb, former Miami Dolphins great offensive tackle, here on air with Chris Shanafelt. And I mentioned Adam Shaheen. He's a former Bear. He's had a pretty good start to his Miami Dolphins career. But here's another former Bear that the Dolphins signed in the offseason, and that's running back Jordan Howard. They signed him to a 1-year deal worth just under $10 million. He was, of course, with the Philadelphia Eagles last season. He was a healthy scratch for what seemed like most of the games this season, Richmond. And then earlier in the week, the Dolphins officially waived him. What did they see in Howard in the offseason to give him that type of a 1-year deal, again, worth nearly $10 million? And where did it exactly go sour at?
He played a couple of games ago. I don't know exactly where it went sour, but I think if you look at the production you got from Ahmed the last couple of weeks, I think he's just been more productive and more performance. Howard played that game, but to me, I don't know if it's the scheme the Dolphins are running with. It seems like Howard is more in between the tackles, running back or whatever, and a lot of times they do a lot of stuff where they run in between tackles, but it's more versatile, catching the ball out the backfield, this and that and stuff. So I don't know what happened. Normally, like you said, when you give a guy that kind of money, you don't normally cut him after a couple of games, but something definitely happened. I'm not privy to that, but that kind of raises your eyebrows and say, you don't just cut a guy that quickly. So I think something did happen. I just don't know what.
Right, and we got to take a look at the defensive side of the football now, Richmond. I mean, this is Brian Flores' bread and butter, and we're seeing it right before our eyes. I mean, he bought in some highly sought-after free agents in the offseason, Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy. The 20 points per game that they're giving up is currently ranked 5th in the NFL. It's always easier for a young rookie quarterback, like you mentioned earlier, Richmond, when your defense and even your special teams is playing at such a high level, forcing turnovers, giving you great field position, even putting points on the scoreboard. Does this defense, in your mind, get enough credit for what they've done so far this season? Because in my opinion, I honestly don't think it would be outlandish to say, give me the Miami Dolphins defense over Pittsburgh. I know that might seem like a hot take for some, but when you look at it and you look at the age of some of these players that are playing at such a high level for this defense, Richmond, I mean, Kyle Van Noy is the oldest player on this defense. He's only 29 years old. I think with Brian Flores and this personnel, this could be a very, very good, maybe even great defense for a long time.
Yeah, they've assembled a good group of young guys, and they play extremely well together. You got Howard, the cornerbacks, Shaq Lawson, Wilkins. I can Van Noy. They got a good group of young guys that seem like they're excited, and like you said, the first few weeks, nobody had this expectation out of the Miami Dolphins. And the defense has been a huge factor in getting turnovers and actually scoring points, touchdowns with turnovers. So I can remember Tua's first game. I think they forced, 3 or 4 turnovers, and then we had a special teams punt return, I believe, for a touchdown. So it actually takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback to where you can become a game manager rather than saying, let's put this guy back here and he's got to throw the ball 50 times a game to try to win the football game. So it aids in Tua's development to where he's not in a pressure situation and he can just go out and execute the offense. And then when you get ahead or whatever, it forces the other team in a situation to where they got to say, hey, we got to try to get back in the game or whatever. And a lot of time that's when they make those mistakes. So, like I said, Coach Flores, Chris Greer, they've done an excellent job selecting guys, putting them together. It seems like everybody's meshing, and you see the results. And I think that's why it's been a big turnaround in the national media and stuff where people are starting to pay attention and say, wait, we had the Dolphins is one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're not as bad as we thought we were. And now people see if we continue on this path, we actually have a shot to possibly make it to the playoffs, but we just got to keep taking it one game at a time.
Yeah, you never want to look ahead of your schedule, but looking at the current Miami Dolphins schedule, it's really looking very, very positive, very, very good in the chances that this could be a team that makes the playoffs in the very least. At least, if not win the AFC East, they could certainly sneak in as a wild card team. This weekend, Richmond, the Miami Dolphins take on the Denver Broncos. There's a good chance that they'll be without their starting quarterback, Drew Lock, which means they'll have to play second-year undrafted quarterback Brett Rippon, who actually shined in the one game that he played in against the New York Jets a little over a month ago, in which they were able to get away with the victory. But I think, at least in terms of the outside media, one of the things that's going to be brought up, and it seems like it's always brought up when a team travels to Denver, is playing in that environment. Not necessarily the fans or anything like that, because as we know, they won't have any fans this weekend, but just playing with the thin air and everything that Denver is known for. There's some players that have a hard time even playing in those conditions. Do you have any experience? Did you ever have to travel to Denver, Richmond, and play in the Mile High City? I mean, how did that affect you? How does it affect these players? How might it affect these players on Sunday?
Well, definitely the altitude, you can feel it a little bit. I mean, there's no question in that. Only thing with Denver is hopefully it's not like just an extremely cold front or something blows in or something like that. But the thing I think they got to do is not rest on their laurels and start saying, hey, we're pretty good, and underestimate this team. I mean, this is one of those games that if you're not really focused, you can let one slip by. And that's what we were talking about earlier, is not looking ahead of the schedule, focus on the Broncos, continue to prepare like you have for every other game. And I think if they do that, they'll be successful. But the thing is not to start looking ahead and saying, okay, we're 6-3 now. Just continue to take them one game at a time and just say, okay, this is who we got. What do we need to prepare for to win this football game, and execute those things, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, looking at the weather for Denver this weekend, 49, mostly sunny. So we'll see what that game looks like. Miami Dolphins at the Denver Broncos. Again, looking at the rest of this schedule, Richmond, after the Denver, they got the Jets once again, then the Cincinnati Bengals, then the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, that Week 15 New England Patriots, Raiders, and then you end the season out against the Buffalo Bills. That certainly could be a game for the AFC East division. Where do you have this team at the end of the season, Richmond? I know you're a former player, and as we just said, we don't want to look too far ahead into the future, but does this team have a legit shot at making the playoffs? Because I certainly think they have a really good chance.
I think they have a legitimate chance. The thing is just the health concerns. Like we've lost a couple people, but a couple of injuries, you can go from a playoff team to you're out of it. So, and I think that's with any given team. So definitely keeping the players healthy. I think the effort will always be there, but I think we have a shot, and it's kind of the way the Dolphins are playing, the Bills are playing, is kind of getting back to the old Dan Marino, Jim Kelly days back in the early 90s. So that's always good to see, that type of rivalry. So the Bills have been playing extremely well. They got a good young team, but I think we look forward to that challenge. And I think we definitely have a shot if everything continues to make the playoffs and maybe even, win the East. That would be huge if we did that kind of turnaround in a year.
Absolutely. And obviously the AFC East has been the Patriots division for, the longer part of nearly 20 years. And now Tom Brady is playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and suddenly the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins are at the top of the division, with New England still having a fighting chance. They did get a very impressive victory against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football, so we'll see where things go from there. But Richmond, I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat this evening. It's been a lot of fun catching up. Had to talk about this red hot Miami Dolphins football team, 6-3, looking to go 7-3 this Sunday against the Denver Broncos. I know they can follow you on Twitter at Richmond Webb. Anything else before we let you go?
No, listen to have a podcast started, and it's called it's on the Brawl Network, and it's Finside is the name of the podcast. So and you can follow us there. And my other host, Reason, I think his Twitter handle is at the_real_reason, and then KS Ball Games is it's on my Twitter page, but I think it's KSGR. I think that's his Twitter handle. But yeah, if we could follow, support us, and we appreciate everybody listening. But man, it was great to be on your show again, and I appreciate the opportunity, and it was fun like it was last time. So thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. And that is at Dolphins Brawl. You're at Richmond Webb on Twitter, and your hosts at the_real_reason and at KCTSR are your co-host Twitter handles as well. Richmond, I really appreciate you doing this. Hopefully we can keep in touch and do it again. And hey, you know what? Who knows? Maybe when the Dolphins are preparing for that playoff game, we'll get you back on. Anyways, hope you have a great weekend, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Chris. You do the same. Thank you.